The true story of Valentine's Day isn't found on a card or in a box of chocolates. It's actually a historical detective story, a puzzle where the pieces come from wildly different worlds, a chaotic Roman festival, a shadowy Christian saint, a clever poet's whim, and the birth of modern advertising. To solve it, we have to look at the layers, because this holiday is a classic example of history not erasing the past, but building right on top of it. Let's start at the very bottom layer, in the heart of ancient Rome. Forget romance. Picture instead the raw, messy struggle for survival. Every February, as winter clung on, the Romans held a festival called Lupercalia. This wasn't about gentle feelings. It was about brute force fertility and scaring off evil spirits. The name itself might come from Lupa, the she-wolf who famously nursed the founders of Rome, Romulus and Remus. The ritual was intense. It began at the Lupercal cave, where priests sacrificed goats and a dog. Goats represented lust and fertility. The dog represented protection. Then, things got even more unusual. Young men from noble families would cut the goat hides into strips, dip them in the sacrificial blood, and run half-naked through the city streets. They'd laugh and shout, using these strips to gently slap any woman who stepped into their path. Now you might wonder, why would women line up for that? In the Roman mindset, this wasn't an attack, it was a blessing. They believed the touch of the bloody hide would make them more fertile, ensure healthy pregnancies, and cleanse them for the new year. It was a public, noisy, and frankly bizarre way to kickstart the cycle of life as spring approached. So, the first building block of our modern Valentine's Day is a violent, superstitious, and very public ritual focused on fertility. A far cry from a quiet dinner for two. This wild party went on for centuries, but a seismic shift was coming that would reshape the Roman world, the rise of Christianity. As it grew from a persecuted sect to the official state religion, its leaders faced a massive challenge. How do you get a population to abandon deep-rooted pagan traditions they've celebrated for generations? You can't just ban a popular holiday. People will cling to it. The early church devised a brilliant, strategic solution. Don't erase the date, replace its meaning. Overlay a Christian celebration right on top of the old pagan one. This is where the figure of Saint Valentine enters the story, and where our historical detective work gets tricky. Who was Saint Valentine? The frustrating answer is that we're not entirely sure. The early church records mention not one, but at least two or possibly three different martyrs named Valentine, all with feast days around the same time. Over hundreds of years, their stories blurred together into one legendary figure. The most beloved version tells of a priest in Rome during the harsh rule of Emperor Claudius II. Claudius, wanting a stronger army, believed single men made better soldiers. So, he banned marriage for young men. Valentine, seeing this as an injustice, defied the emperor and performed secret weddings for young couples in love. When discovered, he was imprisoned. The legend adds a poignant twist. While in jail, Valentine healed the blindness of his jailer's daughter. On the day of his execution, February 14th, he left her a note signed, "From your Valentine." It's a powerful tale of love, sacrifice, and defiance. But is it historical fact? The evidence is thin. The story was written down long after the events it describes. The historical Valentine, or Valentines, are so obscure that in 1969, the Catholic Church removed his feast day from its official universal calendar, citing a lack of reliable historical evidence. What is solid historical fact is the decree from Pope Gelasius I in the late 5th century. Around 496 AD, he formally condemned the vile and pagan practices of Lupercalia. And what did he establish in its place? The Feast of Saint Valentine on February 14th. The church's strategy was clear. Redirect the public's energy from a rowdy fertility festival to a solemn day honoring a martyr. But here's the catch. A saint's feast day is for prayer and remembrance, not for love letters. We've swapped a public ritual for a private religious one. The connection to romance is still missing. So how did we jump from a martyred priest to a day for sweethearts? For that giant leap, we have to leave the world of religion and enter the world of poetry. The romantic transformation of Valentine's Day is, honestly, one of history's great accidents, and it was fueled by the imagination of writers in the Middle Ages. The key figure here is the English poet Geoffrey Chaucer. In the 1380s, he wrote a poem called Parliament of Fowls to honor the engagement of King Richard II. In it, he penned a fateful line, "For this was on Saint Valentine's Day, when every fowl cometh there to choose his mate." That is, for this was on Saint Valentine's Day, when every bird comes there to choose his mate. Chaucer was being creative. There was no old tradition linking Valentine to bird weddings. He likely invented it for the poem. But the idea was pure genius. It linked the saint's name to a beautiful natural symbol, birds choosing their partners as spring begins. This poetic image was a hit at the royal court. It gave the nobility a fashionable new concept, a specific day for lovers rooted in nature and sanctioned by a saint's name. Soon, it became a trend among the European aristocracy to send handwritten love notes, called Valentines, on February 14th. Chaucer didn't just write a poem, he effectively rebranded the entire holiday for the medieval elite. It's a stunning reminder of how art can reshape culture. For centuries, this Valentine exchange remained a pastime for the wealthy and literate. Making a beautiful handwritten poem required time, skill, and honestly, some pretty expensive paper. But the wheels of the Industrial Revolution were about to turn, and they would transform this intimate custom into a global holiday. Two forces drove this change: technology and savvy entrepreneurship. First, advances in printing made paper goods cheap and plentiful. By the early 19th century in England, people could buy simple printed Valentine verses. Then, in America, a woman named Esther Howland changed everything. In 1847, after receiving an elaborate English card, she decided to start a business. She created incredibly detailed valentines with lace, ribbons, colorful cutout pictures, and sentimental verses. She sold them by mail order, and they were a sensation. Esther Howland is rightly called the mother of the American Valentine, and she proved there was a massive market for pre-made expressions of love. Large companies saw her success and industrialized it. By the early 20th century, greeting card giants like Hallmark were mass-producing valentines for every possible relationship, not just sweethearts, but for friends, parents, classmates, and teachers too. The holiday was being democratized, turned from a courtly custom into a popular tradition. At the same time, other industries wanted in. Chocolate companies, which had previously sold candy in simple shapes, began molding it into hearts and packaging it in fancy boxes for Valentine's Day. Florists heavily promoted red roses as the ultimate symbol of passion. Clever advertising campaigns in newspapers and, later, on radio and TV, tied these products directly to the proof of one's love. The modern commercial Valentine's Day was complete. So, what's the final verdict on the origin of Valentine's Day? It's not a single point on a timeline, it's really more like a historical collage. The ancient Roman layer of Lupercalia provided the date and a primal link to fertility and partnership. The early Christian layer gave us the name Valentine, and a narrative of loving sacrifice. The medieval literary layer, sparked by Chaucer, provided the crucial link to romance and chosen love. Finally, the Victorian and modern commercial layers packaged it all up and sold it to the world. Each era left its mark without completely wiping away the past. The modern focus on couples and love still echoes Lupercalia's ancient fertility wish. The act of giving a gift mirrors the legendary saint's sacrifice. The imagery of birds in springtime is a direct gift from Chaucer's poetry. And the card in your hand is the product of Esther Howland's entrepreneurship and Hallmark's assembly lines. Valentine's Day is a living museum of human culture, showing how we constantly recycle old traditions, filling them with new meanings that fit our time. The next time you see a heart-shaped balloon, remember, it's floating at the end of a 2,000-year-old thread. A thread woven from ritual blood, sacred legend, beautiful poetry, and, well, very clever salesmanship. So, the next time you see a heart-shaped box of chocolates, you'll know it's the latest piece in a puzzle that's been coming together for over 2,000 years. If you enjoyed untangling this history with us, the best way to help the channel is to tap that like button. It genuinely helps other curious folks find these stories. If you're new here and you like discovering the strange backstories behind our everyday world, consider subscribing. We put out new deep dives like this every week. And of course, if you know someone who'd love this weird tale, share it with them. Thanks for watching. Until next time.
Yeah.